Today, we're cracking open a user manual, but it's not for your phone or your computer. Nope, it's a user manual for you. We're going to dive into this really cool framework called the Elixir Operating System. Think of it as a guide to understanding and maybe even controlling your own internal state.
You know the feeling, right? One day you are just on fire, totally in the zone, everything is clicking. And the next, ugh, you can barely bring yourself to send an email. You feel drained, you want to hide. But what if that massive swing wasn't just random? What if you could actually see it coming?
Well, this framework suggests that we all have this personal operating system running in the background all the time. It's kind of like the software on your laptop. It's this deep, integrated blueprint that's dictating your mood, how effective you are, and all your momentum. And just like any OS, it's got different modes and, well, different protocols. So let's get into it. At its heart, this whole system boils down to two fundamental states. Basically, two very different versions of you that can show up on any given day. Let's put them side by side. And wow, the contrast is pretty stark. On one side, you've got the aligned catalyst. This is you at your absolute peak. You're magnetic, you feel purposeful, you're making things happen. The source material says that when you're in this state, your presence alone can actually change the energy in a room. And then there's the other side, the uncertain suppressor. This is the you that's avoidant, totally frozen by perfectionism, and just completely drained of energy. The whole goal, of course, is to figure out how to be the catalyst more often. So how do we actually do that? How can we consciously kickstart our high-performing catalyst state? Well, this framework says it's not about luck or just waiting to be in a good mood. It's about having the right ingredients. And the system calls these key ingredients Core Elixirs. Think of them as the 5 very specific conditions your personal OS needs to boot up into its best possible version. When these things are present, you're going to thrive. When they're not, you'll probably falter. And here they are, the big 5. These are like the pillars holding up your best self. First, you've got your sense of identity. That's all about who you believe you are. Second is the resonant field, which is the people and the environment around you. Third, your embodied competence, basically your confidence in your own skills. Fourth, that feeling of meaningful contribution, knowing your work actually matters. And finally, your physical and emotional gas in the tank, the activation charge. Let's zoom in on what the source calls the highest impact elixir, identity alignment. This is your primary switchboard. When you feel capable and valuable and truly aligned with who you are, everything else just seems to click into place. Without this core feeling, the whole system just has a really hard time coming online. And this quote just nails the flip side perfectly. That feeling of misalignment, whether it's with who you are or the environment you're in, can cause an almost instant collapse of your system. And that leads us right to the things that trigger that collapse. Okay, so if elixirs are like the essential vitamins for your system, then anti-elixirs are the viruses. They're these specific triggers that will reliably shut your system down. So anti-elixirs are those predictable conditions that just crash your personal OS and push you right into that uncertain suppressor mode we talked about. It turns out knowing your specific triggers is just as critical as knowing what lights you up. And this shows us what shuts us down the fastest. According to the source, the #1 trigger, the biggest reason for a system collapse, is uncertainty about what you offer. That nagging feeling of not knowing if what you're doing is actually valuable. Right behind that, good old perfectionism, which just freezes you in your tracks, and being in a misaligned field, an environment that feels unsupportive or just meh.
And these anti-elixirs, they don't just pop up and go away. They kick off this nasty downward spiral, which the source calls a collapse chain. It might start with just a tiny flicker of self-doubt, but that quickly snowballs into shame, which leads to silence, and then boom, complete avoidance. It's a really fast and brutal sequence.
So is there any way to catch this collapse before it completely takes over? Well, yeah. Your system actually has this built-in dashboard of early warning signs that tell you when you're starting to slip. So what are they? What are those flashing red lights on your internal dashboard? What are the very specific thoughts and feelings that signal you're shifting from that aligned catalyst over to the uncertain suppressor? Here are some of the most common ones, and notice how specific and relatable they are. It's that little voice in your head asking, who am I to do this? Or what should I even say? It's that sudden need for everything to be perfect, that feeling of your energy just tanking, or when you start emotionally pulling away from people.
The source says if you notice even 2 of these happening, it's a huge sign your system is sliding into that shadow state. Okay, so we've covered the 2 modes, the ingredients for activation, the triggers for shutdown, and the warning signs. Now, for the most important part, what in the world do you do about it? This brings us to the actual protocols for taking control. The Elixir operating system lays out 3 key procedures for managing your state. You've got a daily activation to start your day off right, a situational power-up for specific big moments, and an anti-Elixir recovery protocol for when you're already feeling stuck in the mud. Let's just focus on the daily activation for a second. This is a super simple 5-minute routine for your morning. You basically just ask yourself one question for each of those 5 core elixirs we talked about: identity, field, competence, contribution, and activation. The whole point is to intentionally prime your system to get you into that aligned catalyst state before the day even really starts. But what happens when you're already stuck? That's what the recovery protocol is for. First, you just identify what's actually wrong, which anti-elixir is messing with you. Then you consciously interrupt it. Maybe you shift your physical environment, take the absolute smallest action possible to break the paralysis, and then you re-anchor yourself in your identity. It's like your emergency reset button.
Ultimately, the whole goal of this system is to take your internal state out of the world of random mystery and put it firmly into the world of conscious management. It's about making your best self something you can predictably create, not just something that accidentally happens to you. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. If you actually had the user manual for your own operating system, if you could reliably turn on your best self and pull yourself out of your worst, what does that actually make possible for you? What could you do then?